If you added up every pint of berries you bought last year, the number would probably make you flinch. For most households, it's somewhere between $200 and $400 a year on fruit that goes soft in the fridge by Wednesday. A $15 strawberry plant produces a pound of berries in its first summer. A raspberry cane in a half barrel will throw fruit at you for a decade. These are 11 berry plants you can grow in containers this June that will start replacing your grocery bill before the summer is over. Growing berries in containers isn't complicated, but it does ask you to understand one thing the grocery store hopes you never figure out. Berries are the single highest markup category in the produce section. On a per-pound basis, raspberries, blueberries, and blackberries cost 3 to 10 times more than apples and bananas, and most of what you pay covers cold chain logistics, plastic clamshell packaging, and the fact that half the crop bruises before it reaches the shelf. A single container plant on your patio sidesteps that entire supply chain, and you pick the berries at peak ripeness instead of 3 days before it. 2 ground rules before the list. First, every plant here grows in a container on a porch, deck, balcony, or patio. You do not need a yard. Second, I've sorted these roughly by how fast they start producing, so the plants near the top reward you soonest, and the ones near the bottom ask for a little more patience. And one thing to know before we start. 2 of these 11 fruit in their very first summer, and both of them are in the first 3 entries. Number 11, day-neutral strawberries. If you are going to grow one berry in a pot, start here, because nothing else on this list puts fruit in your hand this fast. Day-neutral varieties like Seascape, Albion, and Tristar ignore day length and produce berries continuously from early summer until frost. According to Oregon State University Extension, day-neutral strawberries are specifically well-suited to home container growing and will fruit in their planting year. A single plant in a 10-inch pot, given full sun and consistent water, can produce close to a pound of berries across its first growing season. That's roughly what a grocery clamshell weighs, except this one keeps refilling itself every few weeks. The container setup is simple. Use any pot at least 8 inches deep with drainage holes. Fill it with standard potting mix, and set the crown right at the soil surface, not buried. Feed with a balanced granular fertilizer once a month, water when the top inch of soil dries out, and pinch off the runners so the plant puts energy into fruit instead of babies. In zones 4 through 8, these plants overwinter in the pot if you push the container against a sheltered wall and mulch the crown with straw after the first hard frost. Replace the plants every 2 to 3 years when production drops, and you'll never need the strawberry aisle again. Number 10, Primkin raspberries. This is the other first summer producer, and it's the one that surprises people. Primocane raspberry varieties like Heritage, Caroline, and Joan J. fruit on first-year canes, which means a bare root cane planted this June can produce berries by late August or September. According to Missouri State University's Fruit Research Program, primocane raspberries bear a crop in the year they are planted. The harvest is modest that first fall, maybe a handful per cane, but the plant is just getting started. By year 2, a half barrel with 3 to 5 canes produces enough raspberries to change your breakfast routine. Use a container at least 18 inches wide and equally deep, because raspberry roots want room. Fill it with a rich potting mix, keep the soil consistently moist, and give the canes full sun. After the fall harvest, cut every cane to 1 inch above the soil line. Fresh canes push up from the crown in spring, and those new canes fruit again the following fall. This cycle repeats for a decade or longer, and the only maintenance is that annual winter haircut and a spring feeding. Compare that to grocery raspberries at $6 to $8 per 6-ounce clamshell, and a $20 plant in a $30 barrel starts looking like a long-term investment. Number 9, Alpine strawberries. Alpine strawberries are the wild strawberries of European woodlands, and they do something no other strawberry does. They thrive in partial shade. If your patio gets only 4 to 5 hours of direct sun, these are the berries that still produce. The fruit is small, about the size of a fingertip, and the flavor is so concentrated and aromatic that it makes a grocery strawberry taste like wet cardboard. Varieties like Alexandria, Mignonette, and Rougeon grow in neat little clumps with no runners, which makes them perfect for window boxes, hanging baskets, and the edges of larger pots. They fruit from June through October, a few berries at a time, enough for a daily handful on yogurt or cereal. You won't replace a grocery flat with these. You'll grow something the grocery store doesn't even sell. Start them from seed this spring or buy small plants. Tuck them into any container with decent drainage, and they'll produce for 3 to 5 years before you need to replace them. In zones 3 through 9, they are hardy enough to overwinter in the pot with a little mulch. A packet of seed costs around $3 and gives you a dozen or more plants. Number 8. dwarf thornless blackberries. Container blackberries used to be a fantasy because traditional varieties send out 10-foot thorny canes that need trellising and a strong fence. Baby cakes changed that. The bushel and berry breeding program tops out at 3 to 4 feet, needs no trellis, and produces full-size blackberries on a compact bush that fits in a large patio pot. It's self-pollinating, so one plant is enough. In mild climates it throws 2 crops, one in summer and a smaller flush in fall. Plant baby cakes in a pot at least 5 gallons in size, in full sun, with rich, well-drained potting mix at a pH between 5.5 and 6.5. Water it regularly, feed monthly during the growing season, and you'll start picking blackberries in the second summer. The first year is all about root and cane development, so be patient and enjoy the free thornless foliage while the plant settles in. Grocery blackberries run roughly $3 to $5 for a 6-ounce container, and they go moldy in about 2 days. Yours stay on the branch until you eat them. Number 7. Compact blueberries. Blueberries are the berry everybody wants, and they're also the one that asks the most of you up front. Unlike strawberries and raspberries, a blueberry bush takes 2 to 3 full seasons before it produces a meaningful harvest. According to the University of Maryland Extension, blueberry plants should not be allowed to fruit during the first 2 years after planting, and any blooms that form should be removed so the bush puts its energy into root growth. That means you're picking off flowers in year 1 and 2, not the instant gratification you came here for. The payoff for that patience is enormous. A mature high-bush blueberry in a container produces around berries per year and keeps producing for decades. Varieties bred for containers, like Top Hat, Sunshine Blue, Jelly Bean, and Pink Icing, stay compact enough for a large patio pot. Blueberries need acidic soil, around pH 4.5 to 5.5, and standard potting mix is not acidic enough. Use a mix designed for azaleas and rhododendrons, or blend peat moss into your potting soil until a cheap soil test reads in the right range. Full sun, consistent moisture, and an annual feeding with an acid-forming fertilizer are the rest of the recipe. 2 bushes of different varieties will cross-pollinate and set more fruit than a single bush alone, so buy a pair if you have the space. If you're learning something useful, take a second and subscribe. There's a lot more budget gardening like this on the channel, and it costs even less than a blueberry bush. Number 6. Currants. Red currants and black currants are the berries American gardeners forgot, and the grocery store never carried them in the first place. In Europe, currants are a kitchen staple. Jams, syrups, sauces for meat, juice blended into sparkling water. In the United States, currants were banned for decades in some states because they can host white pine blister rust, and by the time most bans were lifted, an entire generation had never tasted one. Growing currants in containers brings that flavor back. The bushes stay compact, around 3 to 4 feet, they're self-pollinating, and they tolerate partial shade better than almost any other fruiting plant. A 5-gallon pot with rich, well-drained potting mix and consistent moisture is all they need. Red currants produce translucent ruby clusters that look like tiny chandeliers, and black currants have a deep, musky flavor that turns into the best jam you've ever tasted. Expect your first real harvest in the 2nd or 3rd year after planting, and a mature bush puts out several pounds of fruit per season. Prune out any wood older than 3 years each winter, because currants fruit best on younger branches. Before you order, check your state's regulations, because a handful of states still restrict currants. Everywhere else, you'll be growing a berry most of your neighbors have never even heard of, and paying nothing for fruit that would cost a small fortune as an imported European preserve. Number 5. Gooseberries. If currants are forgotten, gooseberries are invisible, and that's a shame, because a ripe gooseberry tastes like a cross between a grape and a kiwi, and the plants are so forgiving they practically raise themselves. Gooseberries grow as compact shrubs, 3 to 4 feet in a container, and they tolerate partial shade in cool climates better than most berries on this list. A single bush in a 5-gallon pot produces fruit by the 2nd or 3rd year, and according to Iowa State University Extension, a mature gooseberry plant yields around 5 quarts of berries per season. Self-pollinating, disease-resistant in most climates, and unbothered by neglect, gooseberries are the berry for the gardener who wants to harvest without fussing. Plant in a pot with standard potting mix, water regularly, prune out any dead wood in late winter and let the bush do its thing. The fruit ripens in midsummer, green at first, then blushing pink or red depending on the variety. Pick them green for tart pies, or wait until they soften and sweeten on the branch. The same state restrictions that apply to currants apply to gooseberries, so check before you order. If your state allows them, Invicta and Hinnomaki Red are 2 varieties known for container performance and mildew resistance. Number 4. Honeyberries. Honeyberries, also called haskap, are the cold climate berry that most gardeners have never heard of. The fruit looks like an elongated blueberry, and it tastes like a blend of blueberry, raspberry, and something vaguely like plum. The bushes are extraordinarily cold hardy, surviving temperatures that would kill a blueberry outright, and they ripen weeks before strawberries in most zones. For container growing, choose a pot at least 5 gallons in size and fill it with a good potting mix amended with compost. Honeyberries grow 3 to 5 feet tall, tolerate partial shade, and handle a wide soil pH, which means you skip the acid soil fussing that blueberries demand. One important rule: honeyberries need a pollination partner. You'll need 2 different varieties to get fruit, so plan on 2 containers. The investment is worth it. The bushes start producing in their 2nd or 3rd year. The berries freeze beautifully for smoothies and baking. And because almost nobody grows them, you'll have a berry that impresses every gardener who visits your patio. According to Utah State University Extension, haskap is adapted to cold climates and performs well in zones 2 through 7. Look for varieties like Tundra, Borealis, and Honeybee from the University of Saskatchewan breeding program, bred specifically for flavor and cold tolerance. Number 3. Goji berries. Goji berries at the grocery store cost $10 to $15 for a small bag of dried fruit. Growing them at home is so easy it borders on absurd. The plants are fruit tolerant, pest-resistant, and hardy across zones 3 through 10. In a container, a goji berry shrub grows 3 to 5 feet tall with arching branches and produces small, bright red berries from midsummer into fall. Use a pot at least 18 inches deep with well-draining soil in the slightly alkaline range, which is the opposite of blueberries, and a nice break from acidifying everything. Full sun is ideal, and the plant handles heat and dry spells without complaint. Expect your first harvest in the 2nd year after planting, with production increasing each season after that. The berries dry naturally on a screen in the sun, and homegrown dried gojis taste nothing like the stale imported bags at the health food store. Fresh off the bush, they're mildly sweet with a hint of tomato, and they go into smoothies, trail mix, and stir-fries. The plant is also ornamental enough to hold its own on a patio without looking like a farm experiment. Repot every 2 to 3 years into a slightly larger container, feed monthly during the growing season, and the bush keeps producing for well over a decade. Number 2. Elderberries. Elderberry syrup went from grandmother's remedy to a $20 bottle at the health food store, and the bush that produces the berries is one of the most vigorous fruiting plants you can grow. In a container, elderberries ask for more space than anything else on this list. A minimum 20-gallon pot, at least 24 inches wide, with rich soil and consistent moisture. In return, the bush grows 6 to 10 feet tall with proper pruning, and produces flat-topped clusters of tiny purple-black berries in late summer. 2 important details before you order. First, elderberries produce best when 2 different varieties cross-pollinate, so plan for 2 large containers. Popular name varieties include York, Adams, and Nova, and any 2 of those planted together will set fruit well. Second, raw elderberries are mildly toxic and must be cooked before eating. The cooked berries and flowers are safe and have a long tradition in syrups, wines, jams, and pies. Container elderberries produce less than their in-ground counterparts, but even a reduced harvest gives you enough berries to make several batches of syrup each fall. Prune hard in late winter to keep the bush manageable in the pot, and feed heavily through the growing season. The elderflower clusters that appear in early summer are edible too. Dip them in batter and fry them, or steep them in sugar water for elderflower cordial. Expect your first real berry harvest in the 2nd or 3rd year. Number 1. Lingonberries. Lingonberries take the top spot because they combine everything a container berry grower could want, and almost nobody in the United States grows them. They're the berry behind Ike's famous lingonberry jam, a staple across Scandinavia, and they grow naturally in cold, rocky, acidic soil, which makes them perfectly happy in a shallow container of peat-based potting mix on a north-facing porch. The plants stay under 18 inches tall, they're evergreen, and they produce 2 crops per year, a small flush in midsummer and a heavier harvest in fall. The berries are tart and firm, nothing like a sweet summer strawberry, and they store in the fridge for weeks without going soft. That storage life alone sets lingonberries apart from every other berry on this list. You pick them, you refrigerate them, and they're still firm a month later. Try that with a raspberry. A 10 to 12 inch pot with acidic potting mix, consistent moisture, and partial to full sun is the whole growing recipe. The plants are self-pollinating, pest-resistant, and winter-hardy through Zone 2. Corally and Red Pearl are 2 widely available varieties that produce well in containers. Expect your first real crop in the 2nd year, and the bushes keep producing for decades. A jar of imported lingonberry jam runs $4 to $7. A single plant on your porch produces enough berries to fill your own jars for the price of sugar and a pot of boiling water. Add up the math across this list. A flat of day-neutral strawberries, a couple of primocane raspberry canes, a pair of blueberry bushes, and any 3 or 4 of the rest. The upfront cost for that kind of collection is somewhere in the range of $100 to $150, spread across a few seasons of planting. Within 2 to 3 years, every one of those containers is producing berries that you'd otherwise buy at the store, and the plants keep producing for 5, 10, or 20 years depending on the species. The grocery store berry aisle doesn't go away overnight, but it starts losing your business one pint at a time. There's plenty more budget gardening on the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.